In the late 1980s, the movie Dirty Dancing became a worldwide hit thanks to its electric chemistry, unforgettable music, and heart-pounding dance scenes. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze became household names, but behind the scenes there were a lot of tensions, especially during the filming of the now iconic Hungry Eyes montage. No one knew that Jennifer Grey was hiding something that would come to light years later. It was a truth that changed everything. Before Baby and Johnny danced their way into movie history, there was Red Dawn, a movie whose tense relationships behind the scenes set the tone for everything that was to come. When Jennifer Grey found out that Patrick Swayze had been cast with her in Dirty Dancing, her heart reportedly sank. Their history wasn't one of friendly banter or warm friendship. It went back to a different movie called Red Dawn, and it wasn't a good one. After the Soviet Union invades the United States, a group of high school students become guerrilla fighters. The movie was intense, dramatic, and physically demanding. Behind the scenes, however, it was a boiling pot of egos and energy. Patrick Swayze played Jed Eard, a tough guy character who was a lot like Swayze's own personality at the time. Jennifer Grey had a smaller role as Tony Mason, one of the young fighters. While the cast bonded over their long, hard work in New Mexico, not everyone got along. Swayze was a trained dancer and former gymnast, and he was known for taking his work very seriously. He threw himself into his role with military-like focus and discipline, but his intensity often came off as overbearing. He was said to stay in character between takes, even when the cameras weren't rolling. This worked well for action scenes, but it made it hard for other people to relax or feel comfortable around him. Jennifer Grey, on the other hand, was more spontaneous and open about her feelings, listened to her gut, and acted in a softer, more natural way. During Red Dawn, she thought Swayze's behavior was too aggressive, too macho, and sometimes even scary. He loved pulling pranks and making jokes, but she thought many of them went too far. At one point during filming, Jennifer Grey complained that Swayze would mess around during serious scenes, making it hard for her to stay in the right emotional space. Their working styles and personalities clashed. Jennifer Grey later said that Swayze was sometimes charming but mostly difficult to work with. She called him macho and a show-off who had to be in charge of every scene. Working with Swayze was like walking on eggshells because she never knew what mood he'd be in, or if he'd take her seriously. When Red Dawn ended, she hoped they'd never work together again. Little did she know what was coming next: casting Ice and Fire. When the casting team for Dirty Dancing started looking for leads, they faced a daunting task. Baby and Johnny had to have electric, believable, and deeply emotional chemistry. They also needed fire, vulnerability, tension, and connection. Jennifer Grey was already cast as Francis Baby Houseman, but it was much harder to find Johnny. Then Patrick Swayze's name came up. He had the right look, charisma, and most importantly dance training, but he had a history with Jennifer Grey that wasn't good. Jennifer Grey remembered how badly they got along during Red Dawn, so when his name came up for the part, she turned it down. Jennifer Grey, who played the lead in Dirty Dancing, felt awkward around Swayze right away. She told the casting team that she wasn't sure if she wanted to work with him on another project, but the producers were desperate for a male lead with charm, masculinity, and real dance experience. They thought Swayze was the only actor who could physically and emotionally play Johnny Castle, so they invited him to the castings anyway. Things took an unexpected turn just before their screen test together. Swayze pulled her aside. He looked her in the eye and said, I love you, I'm so sorry, and I know you don't want me to do the movie." His voice cracked and tears welled up in his eyes. Jennifer Grey's guard was still up, but she saw something different in him at that moment. He wasn't the cocky actor she remembered from Red Dawn. He was vulnerable. We could kill it if we did this," he told her. That one moment changed everything. Jennifer Grey agreed to do a screen test with him even though she knew it wasn't a good idea. What happened during the test changed everything. When they walked into the screen test, something magical happened. The tension they had before turned into passion, and their energy was electric. They shocked everyone with their undeniable chemistry, which wasn't fake but real. Jennifer Grey's sweet awkwardness and presence fought and danced in a way that felt real and raw. The roles were theirs and their chemistry was undeniable, even electric. But the tension that Red Dawn's problems hadn't gone away. They had just been buried until the right time to come to the surface. And once they started filming Dirty Dancing, all the unresolved problems would come back before it could turn into magic. It was a battlefield. The road ahead wasn't smooth. Production moved to Lake Lure, North Carolina, where the weather was hot, muggy, and stifling. The budget was tight and time was short. Cast and crew often had to work together, worked long hours, and there wasn't much room for error. Sets were simple, costumes were reused, and locations sometimes barely held together. Swayze hurt his knee during filming, and the schedule had to be constantly changed to work around his recovery. Jennifer Grey wasn't sure how to handle the pressure of playing the lead role and the emotional weight of her past relationships with Swayze. But in the middle of all that pain, a story about love, class, and rebellion began to take shape. The real drama, though, wasn't just on screen, it was building behind the scenes, and what happened off camera during Dirty Dancing would be just as memorable for moviegoers as what they saw in theaters. Behind the scenes of Dirty Dancing. Once filming for the movie started, Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze's moment of unity started to fade. The emotional apology and chemistry of the screen test were real, but they didn't erase the personalities that had already hurt each other years before. When the camera started rolling, the tension between Jennifer Grey's sensitive, intuitive approach and Swayze's trained perfectionist style quickly came back to the surface. Patrick Swayze had years of dance training. He was a classically trained ballet dancer who had performed professionally before switching to acting. Jennifer Grey, on the other hand, had no formal dance background. She was passionate, expressive, and emotionally connected to her role, but she often had trouble with choreography and rhythm. This difference became a source of tension. Jennifer Grey couldn't keep her cool, so scene after scene had to be reshot, sometimes dozens of times. She'd laugh nervously in the middle of a take or have trouble keeping up with the rhythm of the choreography. As a serious and disciplined performer, Patrick Swayze didn't have much patience for these hiccups. The pressure of a tight filming schedule didn't help. Crew members say that some scenes would start with them barely speaking and staring at Jennifer Grey. Just before the cameras started rolling, they'd slam into their roles, their anger and awkwardness adding to the romantic tension that the audience would later fall in love with. This wasn't just a case of creative differences. Jennifer Grey sometimes felt Patrick's approach crossed the line from passionate to overbearing. During dance rehearsals, he often took charge, correcting her form or trying to steer her performance in ways that made her feel inferior or undermined. Jennifer Grey was an actress. Patrick Swayze, on the other hand, was a dancer who lived by precision. This difference not only caused a clash of styles but also of egos. Crew members reportedly had to separate them between takes on more than one occasion. Swayze was admired for his skill and drive, but some thought he was too controlling in how he dealt with Grey. Grey sometimes complained behind closed doors that she felt overshadowed by Swayze's presence. She didn't want to be a puppet dancing to his lead. She wanted to be a partner in the process. In a strange way, the tension between the two leads became the film's raw emotional power. When Baby looks nervous or tense around Johnny, it's not just acting. A lot of what people saw on screen came from real, unscripted emotional energy between the two leads. But there was one scene where all of that friction, mistrust, and strain seemed to explode into something unforgettable. It became the most famous scene in the movie, and it was one of the hardest to shoot. The scene from Dirty Dancing is one of the most famous in movie history. It's been imitated, parodied, and admired for decades, but not many people know how tense and scary it was behind the scenes. Jennifer Grey had to sprint into Patrick Swayze's arms as he lifted her over his head. This move required perfect timing, strength, and most importantly, trust. At that point in the shoot, Jennifer Grey had never done the lift before, and even though Jennifer Grey had a lot of experience as an actress, she refused to practice it because she was too scared. Swayze, who had the mindset of a dancer and was very focused on perfection, found this very frustrating. He believed in repetition and preparation, while Jennifer Grey relied on adrenaline and instinct to get her through. The filming conditions added to the pressure of the scene. Unlike the earlier lift, which was practiced many times in the freezing lake, the famous final lift, even though they were dancing inside, it was still very nerve-wracking because it had to be perfect. Rehearsals for other dance scenes showed how tense things were getting. For example, the famous scene where Johnny runs his hand down Baby's arm and she laughs out loud wasn't written that way. Jennifer Grey couldn't stop laughing during take after take, and Swayze got angry because he couldn't understand why she couldn't control herself. Ardolino often kept the cameras rolling even when actors and actresses went off script. For example, in one scene, Gray was supposed to stand in front of Swayze with her back to him and put her arm up behind his head while he trailed his fingers down her arm like on the movie poster. Even though it was supposed to be a serious and tender moment, Jennifer Grey was tired and found the move ticklish, and she couldn't stop laughing every time Swayze tried it, no matter how many times Ardolino asked for. The producers were eager to finish the scene and found Gay's behavior annoying, but they decided the scene worked as it was and included it in the movie, complete with Jennifer Grey's giggling and annoyed face. The filmmakers saw something real and electric in that moment and decided to keep it in the movie. Despite all the chaos, when it came time to film the famous final lift, they did it in one take without practicing. It was just pure tension and adrenaline, and somehow it worked. The shot became the emotional climax of the movie. During filming of one of the more intimate scenes, the dance montage set to Hungry Eyes, things had already reached a boiling point. Jennifer Grey kept what happened in that moment a secret for years and didn't talk about it until much later. When she finally did, the reaction was explosive. What Grey did to hide the disgusting behavior. The Hungry Eyes. Many people remember the montage in Dirty Dancing as a fun and sensual moment of budding romance. Set to Eric Carmen's catchy song, it shows the spark between Baby and Johnny during dance rehearsals. The scene looks flirty and light-hearted on screen, with shy glances, teasing touches, and synchronized movement. But behind the camera, things were much more complicated. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze were barely holding it together at this point in filming. While viewers saw chemistry, what was really going on? During this scene, Grey, who was already emotionally fragile from the long shoot and ongoing problems with her co-star, was pushed to her limit. The scene called for repeated physical closeness and real romantic tension, which became harder and harder to fake. By this time, Patrick Swayze was getting more and more annoyed with Grey's pauses and delays. Every giggle and missed cue was grated on him, according to reports from the crew. Members started taking pictures between takes. He muttered under his breath. He took a deep breath and rolled his eyes. At one point, he reportedly stormed off set and had to be talked into coming back. Jennifer Grey, on the other hand, kept quiet. She could feel his growing disdain, especially during scenes where their bodies had to be pressed together. He would later describe his gaze during these rehearsals as one of disgust, not affection. She felt it deeply, but she chose to hide it because speaking out could have hurt the movie or even her career. The set was already tense because of the tight schedule. Grey was afraid of being seen as difficult if she spoke out. It wasn't until decades later, in a recent interview, that Jennifer Grey finally told her side of the story. And it's bad. She went into great detail about how alone and slighted she felt during these scenes. His words were blunt and heartbreaking. He was so cold, he was disgusting. She also talked about how the looks Patrick gave her, which were supposed to be smoldering in the scene, were actually condescending and angry. Fans didn't know what was going on, and the montage became one of the most memorable parts of any romantic movie. It captured an emotional tension that seemed real, which it was, but not in the way viewers thought it would be. The intensity of emotion in that scene wasn't just due to good acting, it was a mix of frustration, restraint, and buried resentment. Jennifer Grey was struggling to keep her cool, and Patrick Swayze was dealing with his own irritation. After this, the producers had to do something because they were worried that the bad blood between the two stars would make it impossible to film the love scenes. To fix this, writer Eleanor Bergstein and director Emile Ardolino made Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze watch their first screen tests again, focusing on the ones with the most beautiful chemistry. This had the desired effect, and the actors were able to return to the film with more energy and enthusiasm. After filming the big dance finale, which was the film was ready for post-production in the theaters, but no one, not even the producers, could have imagined what would happen next. When Dirty Dancing was finally released to the public, it became the biggest hit of the 1980s. When it first came out in theaters in August 1987, no one had high hopes. It was a low-budget movie with no big stars and a simple story set in the early 1960s, but something about it struck a chord with audiences. Within weeks, word of mouth quickly spread and the movie became a huge hit. What started out as a quiet, modest release turned into a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze became instantly famous around the world. People fell in love with the story of Baby and Johnny, two mismatched lovers from different worlds who meet through dance. The soundtrack went multi-platinum with songs like I've Had the Time of My Life becoming radio staples. The movie won an Oscar for Best Original Song and a Golden Globe, solidifying its status as a beloved hit. While Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze were praised for their electric chemistry on screen, the emotional truth behind their performances stayed hidden. Grey later admitted that she had to deal with a lot of complicated feelings after the movie came out. The experience of making Dirty Dancing, with all of its personal discomfort, silent tensions, and private hurt, was hard to forget. But she also came to see that the challenges she faced gave the film its rawness and honesty. The tension on screen wasn't just acting, it was real, which is why people liked it so much. Even though Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze had a rough relationship, they both acknowledged the magic they created together. Over time, the anger lessened and they got back together in 2004 for a Dirty Dancing themed documentary where they could talk about their past. Grey spoke highly of Swayze's hard work and talent, and Swayze openly praised Grey's emotional growth and vulnerability as an actress before he died in 2009. He even admitted that he might have been too hard on her during filming, implying that he wasn't being fair. The movie's long-lasting success also had a big impact on both of their careers. For Jennifer Grey, playing Baby was a turning point in her career, even though she continued to act in later years. She often talked about how hard it was to break away from the image of the innocent girl in Dirty Dancing. For Patrick Swayze, on the other hand, he became a leading man in Hollywood and went on to star in hits like Ghost and Point Break. But no matter where their careers took them, they were always together. Looking back, Dirty Dancing was more than just a movie. It was a moment in time and a story that touched the hearts of millions of people while quietly hiding the emotional cost that was paid to make it. Long before the fame and the great reviews, this was a movie full of tension, laughter, missed cues, and frustrating rehearsals. One scene in particular showed this mix of beauty and struggle, a failed screen test caught on camera that almost ruined everything before it started. Emil Ardolino later thanked his lucky stars for passing up the first screen test in favor of a second. It was this second test that convinced everyone that Swayze and Grey could really bring the characters of Johnny and Baby to life. Dirty Dancing not only made him a Hollywood legend, but it also left a legacy that is still very much alive almost 40 years later. Jennifer Grey's thoughts on Dirty Dancing in the years since its success have been ones of grace, and even though there were some rough spots while filming, Grey later realized how valuable the things they had made together were. After Swayze, she talked about how important it was for them to get back together, especially in his last years. When Swayze was diagnosed with cancer, Grey reached out to him privately. She later said that Patrick was a rare and beautiful person who was complicated but kind. This quote shows how their relationship changed from one of tension to one of mutual respect and understanding, as they both realized Jennifer Grey was deeply affected by Patrick Swayze's death in 2009. And in the years that followed, she became more open about how they interacted on set while filming Dirty Dancing. She used to call him disgusting in interviews, but now she speaks with deep respect and admiration for him, admitting that their volatile relationship was part of what made their performances so believable. Dirty Dancing is still one of the most famous and loved movies of all time. Its story of forbidden love and dance has gone beyond its humble beginnings to become a cultural touchstone. Though the hidden tensions behind the scenes are now part of the movie's history, those struggles ultimately contributed to the movie's unforgettable energy. Jennifer Grey's decision to keep the pain of their relationship a secret let the film's raw emotion shine through, making a real connection with audiences. Shows that real feelings like pain, joy, or excitement can be woven into art in ways that make it unforgettable. What do you think about Dirty Dancing? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you next time.